Thank you. If you don't know who I am, I go around the world and interview tech executives and cool people like Doc Searles, who's sitting up here in the front row. About 18 months ago, I started seeing a set of patterns, a set of trends maybe that you would call them. And I started putting them together. So let's just talk about what the 5 trends are that I started seeing. I started seeing an explosion in wearable computers. You know, I'm wearing a fatigue science sensor that studies if I have had enough sleep. Let me see yeah, I've had enough sleep tonight. Epiphany Eyewear is coming out of Stanford. They're putting a little camera into the sunglass frame that they're 3D printing. Basis Watch has a sensor that watches your heart rate and another sensor that watches your motion. The guy on the right created a company called Recon Instruments. He's building these little compute packages that have a little screen. So this is the Oakley Airwave ski goggle. So as you're skiing, you can see how fast you're going and what your hang time on your jump is. So he has sensors and a compute package and a little tiny display. And the guy on the left created something I'll show you in a second. Come on. Oops, sorry. I went to Plantronics, and this is going to be a big trend. How many people have heard of low-energy Bluetooth? How many people have played with low-energy Bluetooth? Not many. I had breakfast with Dave Weiner yesterday, and he didn't know what it was, and he's like a visionary in the computer industry. He created podcasting and RSS and a lot of things. These low-energy Bluetooth radios run for 2 years on a little coin battery, and they spit an identifier into the air. So imagine somebody stuck one of those on the podium here. I could actually walk up with my iPhone, and it starts seeing that identifier and can do stuff, and it can turn on my slide deck or something, or give me access to the controls in this podium just because I'm close. It can tell that you're 2 inches away, 1 foot away, 3 feet away, 100 yards away, and soon we're going to be walking through fields of these little Bluetooth, low-energy Bluetooth radios. Arduino, you guys have seen out in Maker Faire. This is the coat for the CEO of Autodesk that has a bunch of LED lights, and it's all controlled by an Arduino processor. This is already obsolete. Arduino just shipped a new one that's the size of a dime that does the same thing that this board did a year ago. That's this big. So you can see the trend lines are starting to go crazy. Cheaper, smaller, more efficient, doing some fun things. I started seeing a lot of weird database technology come out. A lot of database technology designed to either deal with graphs of data or streams of data. Twitter, for instance, has 1 billion tweets a day, right, or every 2 days. And they needed a different database system than Oracle to deal with that kind of flow. So we now have things like Mongo and other database technologies, but there's a lot happening here that we could have a whole 2 hours just talking about databases. By the way, that's the first Google computer, the colorful thing. The hard drives inside are 400 megabytes each. The Seagate drive up on the top has something like 12 terabytes of data in it, right? So you can see how much of our world has changed in just 12 years. This is another Facebook computer. I started seeing sensors come around and expand in numbers a lot. At the Consumer Electronics Show, I've started seeing stupid things like plant sensors, but they're not so stupid. The farmers in my community are putting sensors in the rows to understand what's going on in the soil and how much fertilizer to spray on the soil. I'm about to go to John Deere to see the tractor of the future, and they're putting sensors and GPS and computing into the tractors and making them almost self-driving. In fact, they're pretty close to self-driving at this point because all they have to do is go straight up and down in the line. But those tractors can now talk to those sensors that they're driving next to and know exactly what to put in the soil. We're seeing a doubling effect, a Moore's law of social network data. Twitter today has a billion tweets every 36 to 48 hours. In 18 months, that's going to be double what it is today. And that flow has enabled new companies. I'll talk about a couple later. And we're starting to see an explosion, another Moore's law in location data. How many people checked in here on Foursquare? I saw 300 and something people check in about an hour ago. We are checking in or showing our location data to each other or to the systems that serve us in a very high way. How many people have a new iPhone that came out on Friday? Yeah, I have one in my pocket. Inside the settings, there's a place to look where it's actually watching all the places you visit. It's really freaky, and there is a freaky side to this new world that really changes our privacy. In my new book that's coming out Wednesday, we spent a lot of time on privacy and where we think the future of that's going. Let's talk about privacy. This, for humans, these 5 trends, when mixed together, are going to mean context, a contextual system. And this will give us 2 things, humans, 2 things. We are going to be in a highly personalized world. When I have Google Glass, I broke it, so I didn't bring it here, but Google, when you try my Google Glass, you see my email, my stocks, my weather, my airline tickets, my tweets, my Facebook page, et cetera, my history through life, and more, right? It's highly personalized. Oakley talked about in the future your sunglasses, your ski goggles are going to be highly personalized to you. Nike is about to release a shirt with sensors in it. It's going to know who you are, and it's going to watch your behavior as an athlete, right? And it's going to be highly personalized to you. It's going to serve you and do stuff for you. On the other side, it means you will be tracked, and you are being tracked by this new iPhone that's in my pocket. It has a 6-axis accelerometer that's running full-time on a separate processor system from the main processor, so it doesn't use much battery life, but it knows whether I'm nervous, or whether I'm shopping, or whether I'm skiing, or whether I'm walking, or whether I'm running, or whether I'm sleeping. The sensor is the same thing, basically. Now, there's no software yet that shows you all that, but it's all possible, and it's coming in the next 18 months. This is a new 3D sensor. This guy created PrimeSense in Israel. He licensed this technology to Microsoft as the Kinect sensor. So if you have a Kinect sensor in your house, he's the guy who wrote it. It's so sensitive now that it saw how hard I was pressing on a table next to a projector. It is unbelievable. The new Kinect that's coming out in December is so sensitive it can see your heartbeat from across the room. So think about that. It sees where your eyes are looking. General Motors, when I went and talked with them, they're thinking about using these sensors in the cars to know that you're sitting in the passenger seat or the driver's seat, and then they're going to watch your eyes and see if you're falling asleep while driving the car, and they're going to wake you up. They're doing shopping analytics. Walmart and a company is doing some tests. They're putting these over the head of the aisles. They are so sensitive they can see when you're going to grab a box of Cheerios off the shelf in real time. And if you're holding an iPhone, it can tell you, oh, if you buy 3 boxes of Cheerios right now, you'll get 10% off or something like that. It can change your behavior. It can track you. It can do all sorts of crazy stuff. As makers, we're going to use these sensors all over the place. We're already putting them into robots out here on the show floor so the robot can see its world. The self-driving car that Google's building is really a 3D sensor of this similar kind. For people, it means a second thing. It means that we can build systems that are highly anticipatory, that look ahead because they know what your behavior is. I predict that if you go to church, you go to the same church every Sunday, right? If you go to a gas station, you go to the same 2 or 3 gas stations on the way to work or whatever. If you go to the grocery store, you probably buy the same kinds of things every single time you go there. So if I can put a sensor on you that watches everything you do, after a month, I will know the next thing you're probably going to do, right? Now think about all the data that Google alone has. Google knows every calendar item. It knows that I'm here right now because I put it on my Google Calendar. It knows what searches I've done, how I search, what I search for. It knows my location because I keep Google Maps running and I keep Waze running. It knows on and on. So it already is tracking us in this way, and it is already starting to assist us. Google now is starting to show us our plane tickets and our stocks and our sports teams and on and on. If you start doing searches, things show up on that display. Google Glass has a whole half of it is Google Now. It just shows me this stuff. When I walk into an airport, it shows me my plane tickets. It's really cool and really assistive technology. For businesses, it means two things in the future. One, the business will be able to see everything in sharp detail. And I had when I wrote this slide, a while ago, I really didn't understand how until I went to SRI, where they invented the internet and they invented HDTV and they invented Siri there. And they have a new workstation that watches everything you do and records it. Every eye motion, every click, every typing, everything is recorded on this workstation. Now, they do it for the government. DARPA paid for this, so you can imagine they're building it for controlling drones, which is true, but this stuff will get commercialized in the next 5 years, and your desktop will do the same thing. And if you're working at a big company, the big company is going to know everything about you. Think about how many people used Uber to get here. Anybody use Uber? Anybody use Uber at all? Yeah. So Uber is how I got here. And I click on my screen, right? And I see the taxi driver or the driver coming to me. He sees where I'm standing. He can call me. I can call him. I don't hand him a credit card. It collected that from me earlier, and it just passed him his payment. Think about being Travis, the guy who runs Uber. He can see every transaction, every customer, every piece of inventory in real time on his phone if he wanted to. This is, by the way, is the thing that the other guy created. It was created for less than $10,000 in somebody's garage. It has two 1080p cameras on it. It can stream live video for about an hour and a half before the battery dies. And already training companies are buying these. Or if you're working on a John Deere tractor or a United Airlines jet engine and you need help from an expert because you hit a problem you don't understand, or if you're a surgeon and you hit a problem you didn't see before, you can turn on your glass and get help from somebody else somewhere else in the world, and they can see it in stereoscopic view, 3D view. It's pretty crazy what's coming. For businesses, it means a second thing. We are going to know our customers in very deep detail. This is Christy Wells. She started the Social Media Club. She met Paloma Faith at a concert I was at, and that's her husband. She clicked like on Paloma's Facebook page. Paloma Faith could use a system called Audience FM to know more about her, right? Because Christy, of course, has liked, 300 things on Facebook, and Facebook is studying us as we click like on Doc Searle's blog and message people and do all this stuff. It's keeping track of all that, and it's able to report it. So imagine I'm a performer in the future. I'm going to know a little bit more about you. Right now, I really don't know much about you. I know something about Doc because we've had a relationship for a decade, but the rest of you, I don't. But in the future, I'm going to be speaking with Google Glass, and it's going to start telling me stuff about the audience, and it's going to help me customize my performance to the audience that's here, right? And we could go into that. These low-energy Bluetooth radios, for instance. Right now, if you walk into the Ritz-Carlton, I live right by the Ritz, so I like thinking about the Ritz a lot. They have 4 computer systems that run their restaurant or their hotel. One's an open table computer, right? It runs the restaurant. One's a Spa Finder computer, it runs the spa. The Spa Finder computer doesn't talk to the open table computer, doesn't talk to my phone unless I check in. That's not going to be true in the future. They don't know anything about me when I walk in, and certainly when I walked into the one here in New York, they didn't know anything about me. I sit down and they don't know anything, and that is not going to last. You are going to walk in and you're going to hit one of those low energy Bluetooth radios. It's going to know you're at the front door. It's going to do stuff. And it might be freaky, but they're going to figure out how to do it in a non-freaky way. Already at Disney World, you're given, if you're one of their best customers, you're given a RFID badge that you're wanding in as you go on rides and stuff. Guess what? They customize the experience based on who you are. So if your kids all start liking the Donald Duck rides, all of a sudden Donald Duck comes up to your family and starts saying, hey, would you like to take a picture? They're customizing their experience for you based on who you are. And that is going to be a big trend in the next decade. And we're all going to build the systems that are going to do this, right? And we're going to hack them, which is going to be more fun. I went to Harman Kardon, which makes JBL and a bunch of audio speaker brands, and they built the computer system in my Toyota Prius. And I sat with Charles Sprinkle. He's one of the coolest engineers there. He probably would be here if he was in New York. And then he showed me his desk, and he showed me how the world of his work has changed in the last 5 years. His speaker drivers now are, he knows a lot more about those speaker drivers, and he can adjust those speaker drivers because they're run by open source software. So he can do stuff to those speaker drivers that he couldn't do when I was listening to music in the 80s, right? If you know anything about audio, it changes as you put it in different cabinet styles and different waveguides and different things. He has a 3D printer, and he's doing prototyping of different kinds of waveguides to hear what it sounds. And they're also putting it in front of their listening panel in blind audio tests so they can see, like within a couple hours, how his new design did. This is mind-blowing for reducing the time to get a new product to market. And make it a lot cheaper. He's using Arduino boards and Raspberry Pi to do rapid prototyping electronics. So you can learn all about that out here on the floor. And he's now thinking about context because he can redefine the compression algorithms that he's using based on who you are as a customer. So if you listen to classical music, you will get a different speaker system, even though it looks the same, has the same model, in real time than I will because I listen to Skrillex and I want a completely different kind of sound system, right? Same audio driver, same computer, same everything, but he is able to respond to my context in a new way. And guess how he's going to do that? Well, you can look at my Facebook page and see every piece of music I've listened to for the last year. It's called Spotify, right? How many people use Spotify? Yeah. So in the future, you're going to get a Spotify speaker system, right? Going to change based on who you are and what you usually listen to. It's going to affect every product and service. GoPro started 200 yards from my house, so I talked to them a lot. And Nick over there is talking about a new kind of camera that's not just going to capture the pixels, right? I take a picture with my iPhone. It mostly grabs pixels. The new camera that's going to come out in the next 2 to 3 years is going to be a contextual camera. It's going to grab all of your data from Facebook if you've shared it, right? Now, we already can do this. I can already take a picture of you, and we can all tag each other in the photo, but it's manual. It takes a couple of weeks for that all to happen, and I'd have to figure out how to let you all know where the picture is and all that stuff, right? But it can be done. I've seen it done at conferences where people take a picture and put it up on a public Facebook page and say, hey, tag yourself in the picture, and it all happens. But in the future, because everybody here is already carrying a low-energy Bluetooth device in their pocket if they're carrying an iPhone 5S, you didn't know that, did you? You're already carrying one of these devices. We haven't even started writing software for it. There's a new software technology from Apple called iBeacon that will let you do what I defined earlier. So as we walk closer together, it could do stuff like a highlight. But we can build new products that take advantage of those new low-energy Bluetooth radios. We can do face detection with Facebook APIs. They bought Face.com. That works pretty damn well. I saw it. These Israelis, they know how to do shit, right? They look at Doc Searles' picture. They know it's Doc Searles. And Facebook already is doing this, right? You see it when you put a picture up and it asks you to is that really Doc Searles in that picture? Yeah, it is. How did you know that? It's going to get smarter and smarter in the future, and it's going to change every product. Node is a sensor that you can use to do all sorts of fun stuff, and you'll see a lot more of those in the Maker Faire. How it will change every company is, you can put a sensor. So take a normal pair of headphones, JBL or Bose or whatever, and put a little sensor on it so the headphone knows where you're aiming, and put a little compute package on that in there that can reprocess the audio in real time. So, if you go listen to a band in New York tonight, the band is always in the same place, and you turn your head, and the band is always there. In a headphone, the band is actually in your head, which is weird, and the imaging changes when you move your head. Well, that's not normal. Your head doesn't really like that. Your ears don't really like that. They made it so that the band always is here and always stays in the same place, no matter where you turn your head. It's really pretty cool. And it dramatically improves the quality of the sound. And he can also sweeten the sound. He can change the sound, put it in different rooms and all that fun stuff. But the addition of sensors changes the product and changes what you can do. And because the costs of this stuff are coming down so rapidly, we can make this happen for under $100. This sensor is a breathometer sensor. It's coming out in the next couple weeks. It costs $49. Now, cops have had these forever. They cost $500 to $1,000 for a cop to buy them, but now we can buy them for $49. Well, what's going to happen? My brother owns a bar. He's going to buy 10 of them and leave them around the bar. He can have a new kind of drinking game. He can optimize his profits because he has now access to a new kind of sensor. He can play a game with us, and of course we're going to do that. He can also tell if you're drunk, and he can call an Uber and collect $1 from Uber for calling an Uber, right? And save himself from getting sued by somebody who went out of control because they were drunk. But new stuff is going to happen because the sensors are coming down in cost so fast, and we're going to see this over the next 5 years. If you come back to Maker Faire every year, you're going to see new sensors coming out of the woodwork. It's a new kind of augmented reality. We've all played with the first wave of augmented reality, like in Layer. It's on our cell phone. But it's jerky because the processors weren't that fast. The sensors weren't that good. The animation wasn't that good. And the context, what it knew about the world, wasn't all that great. All of that stuff is iterating very, very quickly. And I've seen like Qualcomm showing me full-on augmented reality of a patient, so a doctor can learn how to do a surgery just by passing the phone or the tablet or the glass over their body, and it can teach them all sorts of stuff in real time. It's crazy what's going to come. The previous talk was on Google Glass, and I've already seen a game where the aliens come from the ceiling, and you just shoot them by looking at it, right? And it's an intermixed reality with the real world, which is different than looking at your phone. This is going to be an overlay on the world that's going to come. And it's coming pretty fast, certainly in the next 2 to 5 years. It's a new kind of health. We're soon going to be wearing all sorts of sensors on us. At SRI, I saw a sensor that can tell if you have pancreatic cancer before it is visible. They can see a pancreatic cancer cell in one in a billion parts of blood, I think. And so you're going to soon be wearing a sensor that's going to see that you have cancer. My friends who are asthmatic already have sensors on their medicine dispensers. My Shell Israel, who I wrote the book with, is diabetic, and he already has to study his blood chemistry, right? But he's going to soon be wearing a sensor that has a little needle that goes underneath the skin, doesn't hurt very much, and just studies his blood all day long and warns him if he's out of range. And certainly lets his doctor know if he went to Krispy Kreme and did something bad, right? But this is going to be a huge field. There's going to be lots of talks on what's going on with health. It's a new kind of marketing. I mean, back to that Twitter, the social media doubling effect. Vintank couldn't have been around 5 years ago because there just wasn't a way to do what they're doing. So if you say on Twitter anything about wine, I like Chardonnay, I'm at Sutter Home having a good time, I hate wine, whatever you say about wine, they are studying it in real time and putting you into building a profile of you and what you talk about wine. And then once you say wine, they start tracking you full time and watching your context because they're going to use that to improve your customer service. They're putting geofences around each winery in Napa. So, Doc, if we go to Napa, right, if we go and check in at Sutter Home, it marks us as a different kind of customer than if we check in at Caymus. And if it watches what we say about Caymus and Sutter Home, it'll know exactly what kind of customer we are, right? If we say Caymus is great, but I can't afford the wine, it puts you in a different category than if you say this is the best wine, I'm going to buy 20 cases of it, right, for my wine cellar. It knows something about you just because of your utterances online, and it can serve you. You think it's not already being used? At Napa, one of the biggest wineries there is the Castle, the Castello di Amorosa. They have a big, huge castle. It's really beautiful. If you're an Instagram user, they already put you on a different tour than if you're just there to try the wine. Why? Because they know you affect their brand in a different way than if you just are there for the wine. They want to take you into their dungeon. And they have a dungeon. It's cool. They have a Wi-Fi hotspot in the dungeon. Why? Because they know people want to check in on Foursquare and take pictures on Instagram and tweet and talk about their experiences. So if you are one of those people and you get marked that way, you're going to get on a different tour than if you're just a wino and you don't care about what this Instagram thing is, right? It's a freaky future, and that's pretty much my talk. I'm not sure of the time, so I think I have 10 more minutes. So we could talk about what this means for makers. There's some other things that are happening for makers in the next decade that's going to be seen over and over here. I visited a park where Steve Jobs visited and sort of stole the Macintosh from, right? One of the best research laboratories. They showed me a machine that 3D prints or inkjet prints circuitry. So very low-cost circuitry is coming. It's crude. It's a disruptive technology right now. It can only do 50 transistors and a little radio, but it can print that on a milk carton. So think about what you could do as a maker by putting circuitry into the 3D plastic. Just a couple days ago at the Hardware Innovation Workshop, Bree Pettis, who does MakerBot, was here on stage with me, and we talked about this. In the next 5 years, we're going to have 3D printing with circuitry inside the 3D printing. Lights and all sorts of stuff. Sensors for sure, and these little radios. What else? I'm really happy to be here because I've been to many maker fairs, and this is just a great time to be alive and be part of this world. It's a freaky time to be alive and be part of this world because we're going to live in a new way. Let me talk about what's going to happen to our privacy. At Next Web, I was speaking. I was wearing a galvanic skin response sensor, and I forget the guy's name. Anyways, I was wearing a sensor, and the guy who invented it was standing next to me with his iPhone, and he was watching how nervous I was on stage in real time, chart. He said, "Oh, you're getting pretty calm now." Yeah. And then we started talking about what this means, and he's using it for certain kinds of medical personnel. The sensor costs $200, and it's coming down in cost. He thinks in 3 years it's going to be $10, and it'll be part of one of those sensor packages that you just put on your wrist or wear or whatever, or a badge or something. And he started talking to me about the red light district in Amsterdam, because we were in Amsterdam, and it spiked. It's like, wait a second, this thing's in my head. It knows what I'm thinking without me thinking it. And that's where this stuff really is going. These sensors that are studying us are studying what we are doing and how we react to each other and the world around us. So 10 years from now when we come back, Doc Searles is going to be on my screen, and all of you is going to be on my screen. This guy's getting boring. Get off the stage. And I'm going to be able to talk back, right? I was like, you're going to be in the system. I'm going to be in the system. The world is very, very freaky coming up. And that leads to a new kind of morality that we have to have. We have to figure out how to give ourselves the freedom to get out. I usually am wearing a Scotty vest jacket, and I've talked to him. He's already building pockets in his jacket to block all communication from your phone to the outside world, so you can be a little bit free of the NSA and the system that's being built, right? We're going to figure out how to hack it. By the way, I spoke at the Hardware Innovation Workshop, and a kid already had a similar packet on him and was already thinking about how to hack the system to keep himself free of the system when he needs to be free of it. So we're going to have a lot of fun discussing this new world and thinking about it over the next few years, but it's coming and it's not stopping. The sensors are getting cheaper and faster and lower energy, and I can't wait to see what you guys do with it. Doc Searles.